And welcome back to America Decides. In the wake of President-elect Donald Trump's victory, an article in the 19th says that many transgender Americans feel the country elected, quote, a man set on wiping them off the face of the earth. Our CBS News exit polls found that LGBT voters overwhelmingly voted for Vice President Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. According to the article's writer, those intent on protecting the rights of transgender Americans are also more prepared now than ever before for Trump's incoming administration. And the author of that article, Kate Sosin, joins us now. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Before we get into your article, I want to first ask you about this Tennessee case that's currently before the Supreme Court and that we heard arguments from last week. And in those arguments, justices appeared to be sympathetic to the state lawmakers there and their efforts to ban access to gender-affirming care for minors in that state. How concerned, from your reporting, are transgender Americans about this case in particular?
Yeah, trans people are really concerned, not just about this case, which would be landmark for trans people in terms of access to gender affirming care, but also because the incoming Trump administration has said that they want to ban access to gender affirming care. And so we're looking at sort of this two-pronged approach, wherein come January, we don't know what the situation will be in terms of accessing things like hormones and surgery for trans people. And there's a lot of fear right now in the community about what it's going to look like in just a couple of months for trans people. And so we have these huge questions about what is our right as trans people in order to access the care that doctors have been recommending for years and years and years in order to treat gender dysphoria.
And talking a little more about that, in this article that you write that advocates said that it's difficult to anticipate how healthcare policy will play out, but whatever happens is not likely to happen immediately. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what that means.
Yeah, so there's a lot of legal questions about how an administration would do this, right? So the administration has said that it would cut off funding to health facilities that provide gender affirming care to trans people and to transgender minors. The question about this is, will those health centers comply with this? And then also, can the administration legally do that, and how? What levers does it have? So these are huge questions, and also it requires a massive amount of reach that we're just not sure that the federal government has in order to pull this kind of thing off. So, and the same is true of immigration, right? So anytime that you want to track everybody's prescription, you need to have all of these legal levers and eyes on these prescriptions. We just don't know, and we're not confident that the administration would be able to do that. And we're going to need to see this play out in courts across the country because there are laws that protect transgender people. We have the 2020 Bostock ruling, which is a Supreme Court ruling that found that transgender people are protected by the same laws that protect, for example, cisgender women from gender discrimination. And so we're just not confident that it's going to be so easy for the Trump administration to come in and take away all of these rights from day one. We're going to have to watch it play out. And we saw that with the first Trump administration. A lot of these moves got caught up in the courts for years and years.
Yeah, that's a really interesting context there, and kind of important to point out ahead of the administration. One thing that has happened after the election is that a transgender bathroom ban was implemented on Capitol Hill, but also in the state of Ohio, signed by the governor there. It was recently rejected in Montana's state capitol, but I'm wondering, from your reporting on these policies, what has been the reaction? Is there a feeling that more of these kinds of laws will be passed in states?
You know, it's interesting. We've seen just a groundswell of these anti-transgender laws over the past 4 years, and they have been successful. But we've also seen increasingly, especially over the last year, that they've started to fail, and largely because they're untenable. They're intended essentially to drive transgender people out of public life. But the truth is, the transgender people are going to exist one way or another. This is not a problem that can be solved, right? Transgender people, they exist. We are being elected to public office. We are part of people's families, friend circles. And this is, it's not a problem with a solution. It's just a fact of our lives. And the more that the American public knows transgender people, the less of an appetite they have for policies that are just inhumane, whether it's pushing people out of bathrooms or denying them their health care. And so I think that increasingly we're going to find that these kinds of laws just cannot stand um, because they don't have a place or a purpose other than to exclude people from public life.
Yeah, well, Kate Sosin, we appreciate your time and your reporting, and we will keep following as this new administration begins. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.